Hello, Antiochian men. This is Michael Bocklig, president of the Antiochian Men. And with me today, I have a very special guest. I have Father Josiah Trenham here, and I'm sitting in your office, Father, which is a wonderful blessing. We have been doing a video interview series, but I am here to do the interview with Father Josiah in the flesh today. So I am in Riverside, California, happen to be in town. So Father, thank you very much for doing this interview.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, Antiochian men.
I wanted to ask you a question I've wanted to ask for a long time to start out with. As you know, my father's a priest. You know him well, Father Timothy Bocklig. He is a convert to Orthodoxy. As I'm sure you know, both of my parents actually converted, and I believe that you are also a convert. And I've always wanted to ask you, how did you find Orthodoxy? What led you to the Orthodox Church?
You know, the mercy of God found me. When I was 8 years old, I had a buddy that I played t-ball with. His name is Paul Patriot. He's a physician now in San Diego. But we were on the same little league team, the little t-ball team, and he was Orthodox, and sometimes I would spend the night at his house. And so on Saturday night, sometimes he would spend the night at my house. And when I spent the night at his house, he would take me to his church. And I had an experience as an 8-year-old, believe it or not. I was in his parish, which was St. Anthony Church in Pasadena, here in Southern California. And at the end of the service, all the young boys, the Sunday school boys, were going up first, and they were taking the antidoro from the priest and kissing his hand. And taking that blessed bread and then walking out. And I had never done that before, but it looked interesting. So I got behind the boys and I kissed the priest's hand and took the bread. When I kissed the priest's hand, it was like lightning bolts. That's the only way I can describe it.
Wow.
Lightning bolts shooting out of my mouth. And I remember, I see it now, thinking about that, even though this was 44 years ago. I was in a daze, walking out into the sun at the end of a Sunday liturgy. It was a totally shocking experience, like a touching divine energy. And I didn't think much about it. I had no ability to process it for 10 years. 10 years later, I'm at university, and I met my wife. And she had been raised in a Methodist family, the youngest of 6 children. 2 of her older brothers had gone off to Wheaton College and had studied some religion classes there with a professor who was a great devotee of Orthodox worship. And he had his students visit Orthodox churches. And both of these, what would become my brothers-in-law, became Orthodox. And so when I began to court Catherine, they began to send me some messages. They did not want their sister marrying a Presbyterian boy. A Calvinist in the family was not what they wanted.
I understand.
And that began a conversation that really blossomed into us visiting the local Orthodox church there, and reading books, and meeting a lot of wonderful Orthodox Christians, and eventually becoming Orthodox.
That's a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing that. That's wonderful to finally hear your story. Finding Orthodoxy, it's beautiful. Father, I know you've been blessed with a wonderful family. I know some of your children pretty well. I know of, I think, almost all of them. And I think many people are aware that you have a lot of children. I was wondering if you would tell us, and especially men watching this video, I think a lot of men would be interested in your perspective, especially raising as many children as you have, not only in the Orthodox faith, but as a priest. One thing we spoke about recently is the fact that I'm the son of a priest, and I can understand the challenges that come with being a pastor of a church and the demands that come with parish life. And those challenges, again, I saw from my point of view with my father, the struggles that he had trying to balance the time he was spending with my mom and with me, and then also being able to run urgently to the hospital for someone that may be facing near death. Things of that nature where you have to drop everything and be available to people in the church. Many of the men, almost all of them probably watching this video, maybe don't have situations that are that extreme. But I think that we would all be eager to hear any wisdom that you can give us for especially the fathers that are out there, how to keep a balanced life and a balanced spiritual life when faced with the intimidating prospect of raising children in the church.
Michael, this is a wonderful subject and exceedingly important subject. Marriage and parenting and child rearing is at an all-time low in American history. When I was born, the vast majority of American homes had a father, a mother, and children in them. Even here in California, when I was born, 75% of all homes had a mother, father, and children. Today, across America, it's a minority. It's less than 50%. It's around 46% today, which means that it's not normative. So for us to, we who are Christians who believe marriage is a holy sacrament, a divine mystery, a place of transformation for people, and who believe that childbearing is not just a biological reality, but is a central way of fulfilling the Great Commission to make disciples of all the nations and to multiply the image of God and manifest His glory in the whole world. We really need to talk about this because we're not going to get props and encouragement from the culture. In fact, we're going to have just the opposite, a lot of temptations not to be able to live out our calling. Marriage is from God. Marriage is from God. You know, Jesus chose to perform His first miracle at a wedding.
Right.
And the miracle was very telling. He took the common stuff of life, water, and He turned it into the finest wine. It was a symbol for all from that time until now of what His presence in the natural reality of marriage can actually do. It can transform a couple. It can take the common everyday things of, you know, maintaining a house and working and eating and cleaning. It can turn those things into transformative moments where the kingdom of God invades and the real valuable stuff of life, faith, love, loyalty, endurance, cross-bearing, the things that please God and that form a man or woman into being what they're going to be forever. This takes place miraculously in marriage, and it can't be replaced by anything else. The only alternative for an Orthodox is to aspire so much for a marriage with God that they become a monk or a nun. But the church really doesn't know a third way. We live in community, and we live with Jesus at the center, and that's what the potential of marriage is. And it has to be like a beautiful plant. Marriage is a plant that God gives us that has to be cultivated. It has to be watered. It has to be put into the sun. It has to be weeded if weeds grow. It has to be fertilized. I was talking with someone recently about the fertilization process in marriage, and they said to me, "What does that mean, Father? Does that mean the crap of life in marriage turns into beautiful things?" I said, yes. That's exactly what it means. So marriage is an incredible mystery. And for us, at the very heart of marriage, I recently read through the crowning service, which I do whenever I'm preparing couples for getting married. I have them actually read through it 4 times in preparation for getting married so that they can be familiar with the prayers and they can pray through their own sacrament and not kind of be dazed because it's the first time that they're hearing it. And the references from beginning to end to the glory of procreation and the dignity of childbearing are consistent from beginning to end. We ask a blessing upon them that they would be fruitful and multiply. And I'll point out, the first words that Adam and Eve ever heard from God, the first words that went into a human ear, be fruitful and multiply. That's how important this process is. To have a child is such a significant event. That child becomes a perpetual witness to the one flesh union of that couple. That child is an eternal being. That child will always exist, and it will always exist as a witness to the love, the embraces of affection between the husband and the wife. The child may have, the husband's ears, the wife's nose, whatever, but the point is it's one flesh from two. And a miracle took place for that child to be born. Sometimes in our secular age, we think human beings are just biological realities, but they're much more than that. Human beings are creations from God, and to have a child is a miracle. There's a refrain in the scriptures, and it goes like this: God opened the womb, and sometimes that reverse. and God shut the womb. It shows that the Lord isn't just the master and arranger of marriages, but he's also the one who oversees children. We pray in the wedding service that the Lord would grant children, quote, as is expedient for the couple. We trust the Lord that he knows. Should a family be large? Should a family be small? Some can't have any children. Some are very capable of having many children, and God knows. We can trust him with that.
That's a beautiful response. And as you were talking, it's reminded me of something that I've learned with my experience with the Antiochian men. And we're obviously focused on men in the church and our important role as fathers, and that we are to be co-creators with God. Ooh. And that male creative energy is something that is designed into us by God, and something that I think most of my life I really took that for granted, or didn't think about the connection between the importance of that creative force, because the devil will take that creative force and divert it off course and try to trick us into thinking that we can use that creative force for other things that are not godly. I've fallen into that trap. There was a recent homily you gave. I listened to your podcast on Ancient Faith Radio, and you have the Arena podcast, which I know some of the men watching this may be familiar with. In one of your recent homilies, you spoke about this concept, a learned helplessness, and that really, really struck me, because it reminded me so much of things that I could relate to in my past, where I assumed that because a habitual sin of mine was not being squashed, like I think the way you put it, it's like a snake that you have to hit on the head a 1,000 times, and you're hitting it 500 times, and you're getting tired and you just give up. You used a word that is a spiritual illness, and I think you called it a paralyzing apathy.
Yes. Akadia is the word.
Akadia.
Yes.
I couldn't remember the word, but that stuck with me, because you were describing what I think a lot of men struggle with. And it's a very difficult walk in our culture today, for especially men. The stress, the pressures that we have to provide for a family, to be confused sometimes about what we're expected to be in the world, in society. And that can often lead to what has so often happened in my past, where you just want to give up because you feel like you cannot avoid the temptation.
Yes.
And what you said in that podcast is the only way to squash that, to put it down, is through growing your faith, growing in faith. And that faith is something that must be grown. I was hoping that you could perhaps talk to the men about the importance of facing what we think might be just a insurmountable challenge with some of the temptations that we are facing every single day as men. Maybe give us some wisdom on what we can do to not get discouraged and to give up, as so many times often happens.
Oof, Michael, I'm full of enthusiasm to answer this question, because this, at the heart of the question is, who is God?
Right.
This is the heart of the question. We serve the living God. And with God, there is nothing that is impossible. Everything is possible with God. The despair that hovers over us like a dark cloud, that speaks to us that human beings are static, that if you were a sinner in the past, you're not going to be able to change. Mm-hmm. If someone was repeatedly mean to you, that's just how they are and they're never going to change. Mm-hmm. Those are lies based upon an assumption that God doesn't exist and isn't interacting with human beings. God is alive, and his faithfulness to us is fresh every single morning. Every day that breaks out upon us is an opportunity for change, for newness. There's an incredible psalm. I love it. It's in the praises. So if we listen carefully in Orthodox, we can find it and hear it. It's the first verse of Psalm 149. And it says, "Sing a new song to the Lord, all the earth." Sing a new song. Every day for us is an opportunity to take the stuff of life that God carefully arranges for us. And remember that. There's no aspect of our life that his hand's not in. Sometimes we say, oh, it's just moving according to natural law. What is natural law? Natural law is just God doing the same thing, the same way, in order to give us some stability in life. It doesn't mean that he's not involved in it.
Right.
He's intimately involved in it. The fact that I'm breathing is because his hand is upon me, enabling my respiration to come and to go. And the moment he stops, I die. He's as close to me now as he always has been. His presence makes possibilities just erupt. And to take that day, to take the freshness of every day, and to try to go into life with God, not living by ourselves as though we're individuals on some island and we have to go find God, but experiencing Eucharistic reality that God is with us. You know, when we receive the Eucharist and you listen to the prayers of thanksgiving afterward, it talks about the Lord going into every muscle fiber, every aspect of our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our bodies, our bones.
Yeah.
He's completely permeating our existence, which means that the possibilities for us today, if we remember that, are absolutely limitless. We can weave the stuff of today into a new song every day. We can come to the end of a day having danced with God, and when we remember that, we make tremendous progress. He is more powerful than our passions. This is the witness of all the icons on the walls. All of them are saying to us, look what you can become. Look how much God loves you. He doesn't disdain anyone, man, woman, old, young, educated, non-educated, rich, poor, doesn't matter. If they have a heart that's open to God, look what you can become.
That's hitting the nail on the head with what we're focused on in the Antiochian men, because our goal is to become like God. It's that theosis, the deification process that takes a lifetime, that is the goal of every Orthodox Christian, as you know. So often we can sometimes forget that we as human beings were made and intended to be so much more. And falling short of what we were intended to be is not where we have to choose to stay. We can...
And you know, Michael, you don't have to escape the common stuff of life to be transformed. A mom who gets awakened by a baby screaming in the middle of the night doesn't have to think that's drudgery. No, she can say to herself, this is my hour. This is my hour. What can justify a mother lovingly getting up and attending to her child and putting the need of her child above her own body's screams, except the love of God?
Yes.
That is a significant act. That is a step towards sanctity.
Yes.
Changing a diaper? Who more than Christ was willing to descend into our caca in order to clean us?
That's right.
Who more than him? This is just a little small symbol of something that he does every single day to live with us in our mess, in order to wash us, in order to make us clean. If we do it with him, this common stuff of life, a husband getting up, saying his prayers, eating his breakfast, going to work, working hard, and coming back to his family, to the embraces of his wife, that is a significant act.
Yes.
That is piety. It can be done, and that can shake the world. You know, marriages, family life. St. Ambrose of Milan, the great 4th century church father, the spiritual father of St. Augustine, who converted St. Augustine by his incredible preaching, which was in both Greek and in Latin. The man was an amazing man. He once was asked, how is it that we can fulfill the commission of Christ to convert the whole world? And he said there's 2 ways. You can do it by preaching the gospel to the pagans, catechizing them and baptizing them, which we have always done, and we're absolutely committed to do it. And number 2, Christian husbands and wives can love each other, raise families together, and teach their children through the common stuff of life how to love God. He said, and of the 2, the latter is the most effective in fulfilling the Great Commission. Why? Because you take a pagan, like myself. I wasn't a pagan, but I was an unorthodox Christian. There's a lot that I had to go through in catechism. I had to unwind myself and then rewind myself. And it took a long time. It was an extensive process. When you raise a child, you have the opportunity to teach them 365 days a year for 18 years on how to love each other, how to forgive, how not to hold a grudge, how to show respect even to those who aren't respectful, how to love an enemy, how to revere the elderly, how to be sensitive to a child. All of those things, they're in the school of the home. And they're just saturated with this. And you have the chance then of really birthing from yourself people who are going to be able to take a stand for the kingdom of God in their lives through your family life.
That's a wonderful answer, and it really made me think about the home environment that I was raised in, with two loving parents that were Orthodox Christians that gave me that strong foundation, that later in life I started learning more and more about it, falling deeper and deeper in love with my faith. And that catechism is never over, even for those that have only been Orthodox. It's ongoing. You know, one issue that in the Antiochian men, you're aware that I'm from the Diocese of Miami in the Southeast. I used to be on the West Coast. You remember me from when I lived here as a young man. But now living in the Southeast, you know, Bishop Nicholas has really identified that we're facing challenges as a church, especially with our young men. And a scary statistic that he shared, and you're probably aware of this, 6 out of 10 young men, when they leave high school and go to college, don't come back to the church. And when I heard that, something about me knew that was true, but it was still shocking. And it was disturbing. And it made me sad, because I know personally some of those young men that did leave the church and haven't come back. I see it around me that the churches sometimes have this void of young adults that are just not in the church. And young men, having been one, I know the temptations and the struggles and the challenges, and how at the time when I was younger, I didn't feel like I even needed the church in my life. I didn't feel like there was a place for that. What would you say is, can you give us some advice? What do you think's causing it, and is there something that we can maybe do as men, especially the older men that would like to mentor younger men? Because that's a big focus, is mentorship with the Antiochian men. What can we begin to do? Can you give us some tips to try to bring some of those younger men back?
I'll try. But let me say first how delighted I am that your bishop, His Grace Bishop Nicholas, is so focused on this. What a blessing. I was able to see His Grace Bishop Nicholas this last summer at the convention in Michigan, our Antiochian convention, and we shared an elevator ride, and that time I was able to ask him how he was, and he myself, and he was able to share with me some of the very, very exciting initiatives that are in his mind that God has put into his heart. What a blessing to have a bishop like that and concerned like that, and to take his suggestions and under his guidance and then to flesh them out. This is a beautiful reality. May God bless that interaction, that collaboration that you're having, Michael, and the Antiochian men are having with His Grace Bishop Nicholas. You know, the statistics are horrifying. One of the needs of the hour is for the Orthodox churches throughout the United States, all of us, all of our parishes, all of our bishops, to honestly document our current reality, speak about it out loud, document this stat, document our divorce stats, document our baptism stats in relationship to our funeral stats. There's a lot of statistics that we need, that anyone who feels responsible for ministry simply has to have, and we don't have them. We need them. We have to have courage to look at the numbers, because you can't solve a problem that you can't identify. This is a problem that is very identifiable. Why is it that so many young people, when they leave high school, fail to make the transition from having an adolescent's faith to a young adult's faith? That's the bridge that must be traveled over. One of the main reasons is because the secular university has become an enemy of the church. The university has become a place where, especially the secular universities, which is the vast majority of universities in America, the majority of those universities aren't just tolerant of believers, they're hostile towards faith. I have 2 sons right now who are at Berkeley. I have a son who's a senior there and a son who's a freshman there. I'm not against saying that you can't go to secular universities, but you can't go to a secular university naively and keep your faith.
Right.
The only way that you can go to university, get something good out of it, and develop your faith at the same time is if you go in with your eyes wide open and you recognize, if you make yourself a disciple of professors who are promoting Marxism, who are promoting atheism, who are stigmatizing people of faith as though they're bigots. If you don't know that that's going on before you go, and you naively go and you put yourself under their tutelage, you will lose your faith. So if we're going to go, we have to do what great saints have always done when they go into hostile educational environments. Think of the prophet Daniel. Prophet Daniel was kidnapped by the Babylonians, and then he was submitted to a full indoctrination in the language and the literature of the Babylonians. But he did it with a huge emphasis on his faith. He kept his daily prayer rule. He kept his fasting. He studied the law of God. So as a Jewish young man, he kept his faith preeminent, and he refused to compromise it. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that he got thrown into the den of lions is because he refused not to give up his prayer rule. The king said, "You can't pray to any god but me." And Daniel said, "Sorry." And he continued kneeling, facing the east, facing Jerusalem, 3 times a day to do his prayers. That was his rule, and he didn't change it even when his life was on the line.
Wow.
And what happened? Not only did he keep his faith, but he was actually able to transform Babylonian culture into godly culture through his influence. That kind of mentality is the mentality that our young people have to have when they go into a secular university. They have to tell themselves, I can't just read what my professors ask me to read. I can't just go to cultural events and parties that are fashioned in the secular mold. No. First, I have to go and nourish my faith above everything else, which means as soon as I leave, not a Sunday goes by where I don't find out where I go to church. And don't go to a university where we don't have a strong parish.
Right.
There are some places still where there are universities where there aren't strong parishes. I'm sorry, I don't think we should go to these universities. Go to the universities where there are strong parishes, where you that have an active liturgical life, and where you have a community that you can serve and remain yourself. What Christian is there who doesn't serve people, who doesn't use his gifts? There's no such thing.
Yeah.
No such thing. So we have to make wise choices of where we go, and then when we go there, we have to do what Moses did. Plunder the Egyptians. You have to go there. You have to learn everything that they're teaching you. If you want to be an engineer, fine, learn engineering, but use it for God. You want to become a historian, fine, but study sacred history too. Read biblical history, read the scriptures. You want to study ethics, you want to study psychology, fine, but make sure that you're studying the church's position, and take everything that you're learning and put it through the sieve of the church, because the church is the guardian of truth, not the university.
Right.
There's no promise that Jesus made to universities that they will guard the truth and lead you into all the truth. No. He made that promise to the church. So when you go to university, if it's going to be a secular university and not a Christian university, study, but you got to study double time. Read your scriptures. Talk to your priest about things that you're learning that you think may have some conflict with your faith.
Yeah.
Do the extra work to study and figure out how you can express science in a way that is actually accurate and consonant with faith. And for people like yourself, Michael, who are talented young businessmen, forgive me, we need to build Orthodox schools. We need Orthodox universities.
Yes.
It is an utter total disgrace that we are giving our money, so many wealthy, the Orthodox community in America, of all types of Christians, is the wealthiest and the most educated of any Christians. We have more money and we have more education than Catholics, than evangelicals, than mainline Protestants. But in contrast to them, we don't have our own universities and we don't have our own hospitals. Why? Because we've lacked a vision of maturing ourselves in this way, and we need to stop. We need initiatives. We need initiatives from our bishops to build schools and colleges. And then we need to sacrifice. We need to ask God's blessing on our businesses, and we need to donate the offerings that He gives us in order to establish Orthodox universities that can support the life of faith in our young people.
Definitely. That's a great response, and I think especially the advice that you gave about how to approach a secular university, keeping in mind what our faith teaches us. It's so important, and the things that we do learn can be used to glorify God and to help strengthen the church. Going through business classes, I could see applications as I was studying them, so that's such a key point. Father, I just had one more question for you, and it was more just...
Only one
more. I didn't want to take your entire evening tonight, but I'm very aware of the Patriot Nectar ministry that you have been doing, and I was hoping that you would tell the men watching this video about what Patriot Nectar is. How did it start? What are the goals? What can men especially get out of it, or just people in general?
Patristic Nectar Publications is a non-profit educational ministry. Its goal is to nourish people who are spiritually thirsty with sacred orthodoxy, with what we call the rich teachings, the sweet teachings of the Holy Fathers. The goal is to provide the theology of the church in high quality digital media into the pockets, the phones, the computers where our people are living, to connect them to our faith and to solid teachers. So for an example, what I've tried to do is gather lectures, not just from myself. Matter of fact, in all of the Patristic Nectar Publications library, and we have hundreds of offerings. I think we're about up to 170 different offerings.
Wow.
Many of those are multi-lecture series on everything from Christology, who is Jesus, to catechism, to marriage cultivation, to parenting, to overcoming certain passions like anger. And we have a multiplicity of speakers and teachers. What's common to all the teachers is that they're all faithful Orthodox Christians who are very well educated. They're all doctors of patrology. They're all doctors of the Church Fathers, but they're also virtuous men who are humble before the church. They don't think they know more than the church. There's a lot of academics who are Orthodox, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't taken on the spirit of the academy and become smarter than the church, and they want to revise everything. They think somehow that to study the writings of the saints is not enough. We have to come up with something new. And that's really driven by the secular academy. To get a PhD today, you have to do something new. You have to do something original, and that's really dangerous in the area of theology.
Right.
So PNP, I'll tell you a few of our recent initiatives. One of the initiatives that I'm most excited about right now is that we have been professionally recording. We hired a voice and a studio to professionally record the lives of saints from every day.
Wow.
And we are reading the lives of the saints, not in just short paragraphs that you might find on other good sites like Ancient Faith Radio or at church when you're listening to Orthros, we read a small life of the saint. No, these are from a 6-volume, each volume is about 500 pages long.
Wow.
A 6-volume Lives of the Saints in English that originally was published on Mount Athos at the monastery of Simenopetra and has been kept in the English language by Sebastian Press, which is overseen by His Grace Bishop Maxim of the Serbian diocese here in the West, who gave me his blessing to record the lives of the saints, and it's all for free.
Wow.
So you can go on and you can be driving in your car and you can listen to these high-quality professional recordings of the lives of the saints, and you can see what it means to be a true Christian. It's watering their soul. So we're about halfway done. We started in May. We're keeping one day ahead of the calendar. So we've got 6 months done. It's costing me a chunk of change.
I bet. Yeah.
I got a grant for $15,000 to start it, but
Wow.
I'm looking for donors, Michael,
Of course.
to finish. We have to finish because once it's done, we'll have the entire year done, and it can be used and accessed by fathers, mothers, children on their phones or on their computer. As soon as that's done, if God blesses, we're going to then start another project. And this project is going to be the same professional recording done at a studio of the Bible itself. And we're going to have multiple tracks. We're going to have Read Through the Bible in the Year track. So if you want to read or listen to the Bible being read a little bit every day so that you read through the entire Bible in a year, you can listen to that track. Another is the daily readings, the epistle and the gospel of the day. Another is to read through the New Testament 3 times for the entire year. And you'll be able to pick on the PNP app, you'll be able to pick which Bible story, what Bible text you would like to read or have read to you that day. So
That's great.
we have a lot of excellent things that are going on. I'm hoping that it will continue to blossom.
Tell the men watching this video and anyone that's watching, if they're interested in looking at the content that's already available with the Patriot Nectar Publishing,
Sure.
where can they go to watch it?
Well, on the web, it's patristicnectar.org.
Okay.
Patristicnectar.org. You also can go through your browser, either go through Safari or go through Google Chrome, and simply type in patristicnectar.org. It will come up, and then you can put the share button and add to your home screen, and the app will come onto your home screen. You simply go through that app, you put in your email and a password, you automatically have an account, which then gives you access to our sacred music collection, to theological lectures, to the Philokalia. We are actually digitizing and recording the volumes of the Philokalia.
Wow, that's great.
You can search thematically for topics that you might want to study. They may be lectures on this part of the Bible or that part of the Bible, or they may be themes like True Love in Marriage, or How to Get Old in a Godly Way. We have all sorts of different, you can also search by author. So you can see a collection of our authors like Father Maximus Constis, or Bishop Irenee Steenberg, or Father Kalenik Berger, one of the great Antiochian teachers of our time. You can see all of that on your app, on your phone. You also can go to YouTube and go to our Patriot Nectar Films channel. We produce a small video film. It's usually 8 to 10 minutes long every Friday. We also have some longer interviews with significant Christian figures of our own time, like His Excellency Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone, the Roman Catholic Archbishop of San Francisco, who did an interview with us on same-sex marriage and why that's an impossible right. He is a very influential Catholic theologian and bishop who has been leading the Catholic response against same-sex marriage. Or Dr. Wesley Hill, who is a young but budding Protestant theologian on the question of same-sex attraction. He himself is a man who has had strong same-sex attraction for most of his life, but is more than defining himself by his passions, is a devout Christian, and did an interview with us called Gay and Christian, Forging a Life of Integrity. Those kinds of interactive videos are on our PNP video channel.
That's great.
And you know, we've been able to use digital media to reach out to many, many non-Orthodox.
Yeah.
Our most watched video, for instance, is a video called An Orthodox Perspective on Roman Catholicism. And that has spawned interaction with many, many Roman Catholics who are interested in Orthodoxy, and many who have become Orthodox. Hundreds.
That's wonderful. I'm very motivated to hear this because, Father, it sounds like you and I have the same goal. You've been doing this for quite some time, and I'm just getting started with the Antiochian men, but using the good parts of technology to help spread the gospel and help spread
Orthodoxy. Michael, that's what we have to do. And you'll probably end up doing it a lot better than I have done it, but let's work together.
Yes, definitely, God willing. I'm very motivated and really inspired by what you've described. Last thing, you mentioned that you're looking for donors to help finish that initiative.
Yes.
If somebody that is watching would like to make a donation, how can they donate?
You know, particularly we're trying to raise $15,000 in order to complete the Lives of the Saints project, right, which is 6 more months. That's how much it's going to cost us to finish. And if you'd like to make a contribution to that, you can go onto the Patriot Nectar site, either on your phone or on your computer, and you can push the donate button on the main screen. And that will take you immediately to the donation page, and you'll see there a thermometer that shows how far along we are in accomplishing that goal.
Got it. That's wonderful. Well, Father Josiah, I just appreciate your time. You're just taking out time out of your evening. You're such a busy man.
Get out of here.
Here we go. Okay. All right, Father.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, definitely. And I am going to enjoy hearing feedback from this interview especially, but I'm just filled with joy to be with you, Father. And thank you for being such a great partner with us in the early going with the Antiochian men. We are definitely growing, and there's a lot of excitement from the men in the Southeast. We send you greetings, and we're praying for you and the entire church.
Thank you.
And it's just a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. I definitely will not, for as long as I'm alive, at least.
May it be.
Antiochian men, thank you for joining us for this video interview with Father Josiah Trenham. And stay tuned and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will have plenty more videos where this came from. God bless you, and we will talk to you again soon.